Hi, and welcome. This video is an introduction to Caring for Denver's project framework. At Caring for Denver, we take a different approach to evaluation and learning. As part of our commitment to developing meaningful learning partnerships with our grantees, we work with each grantee to develop an individualized evaluation plan for grant work. The goal is to work in partnership with grantees to create an evaluation plan that is both doable and meaningful for the grantee, while also making sure the plan aligns with what the Denver community told us they see as success for these dollars to improve mental health and reduce substance misuse in Denver. And that alignment's really critical because Caring for Denver funds grants with sales tax dollars from the community. The document we're reviewing today, the project framework, is the structure we use to create your evaluation plan. But just a note before we start, we know not all grantees are equal in terms of resources and experience with evaluation and things like building a project framework. Some grantees come to us with fully operationalized evaluation and learning plans, but most often others are just starting to think about data and how to evaluate their work. But they've never developed a plan like this, and if that's the case for you, just know we're going to be here with you to do this together. We're going to support you all along the way, and it's why we do it in partnership with you, so we can make sure the framework and the evaluation are right-sized for you. So what is a project framework? A project framework is the cornerstone for the grant. It's used as the primary tool for grant check-ins, learning calls, reporting, and other various possible touch points for the grant. So for this reason, having a clear, concise, and complete framework is a top priority for any grantee working with Caring for Denver. A project framework is simply an outline of three things: the intended work, the progress and impact expected related to mental health or substance misuse because of the grant work, and the information available and prioritized for assessing the grant work over the course of the year. It's a working document that's completed over several interactive meetings between the grantee, the program officer, and/or the evaluation associate assigned to the grant. This framework document is finalized ideally within the first month of funding for any application that gets approved to be a grant. Before we get started with the project framework though, in a couple of places on this video, I'm going to reference the shared impact plan, and it looks like this. This document is the driving document behind how we fund and evaluate the work supported by Caring for Denver. If you aren't familiar with it, please take a minute to review the shared impact plan visual and the corresponding video describing it on the evaluation section of our Caring for Denver website. The framework is also one touch point of several in the evaluation system for our grantees. If you're interested in understanding how the framework connects to these other touch points for the grant, you can take a look at our evaluation and learning touch points summary document that's also located in the evaluation section of our website. You can also always reach out to us via email too if you can't find a document. You can use the email address info@caringfordenver.org to reach us. Okay, back to the framework. In the next slides, we're going to walk through the three sections of the project framework as a blank template, and I'll describe at a high level how these three sections get created and used. After this, I'll show you an example of a simple completed project framework to hopefully make the project framework document just make a little more sense. We like to think of the project framework and its sections as almost like a funnel. We start broad and high level with general information, and then we hone in on the actual work of the grant in the first section. We then use that information to hone in further on key aspects of the work in section 2 of the framework and how that work aligns with the shared impact plan. And then section 3, that's the final section. It's where we narrow in together specifically on what information, which is aligned with your data and the shared impact plan, will be required for reporting at the end of the grant year. So we're going to jump in and take a look, but just one note for grantees that already have grants with us at Caring for Denver. Your project framework, it might look a little different from the one I'm showing you today. It's just because we're continually reviewing, reflecting, and working to improve our processes. And that sometimes means making updates to our tools like this template. But even if your framework looks a little different, don't worry about it. The information and the spirit of each section remains the same. Okay, so this is the first page of the framework. And it's simply just a descriptive page, and it helps anyone working on or implementing the grant just have key information at your fingertips. This provides contact information for those working on the grant. It's also an overview of the grant itself, how much is funded, for how many years, what the anticipated reach is for the funding. It will also provide a brief project description as explained by the grantee in your application. It's kind of the what and the why of the grant. And then lastly, it documents the objective of the grant. This statement should remind all involved of the purpose of the grant and the intended impact in just a sentence or two. So typically we talk about the objective as clarifying in a statement what is being done, with, for, or to whom, and in order to see what positive changes related to mental health and substance misuse. From there, we move into section 1. This section is first created by a program officer using information from an application, and then it's honed and clarified during the application review process with the applicant and also through your site visit. So the more specific and clear you can be in your application and on your site visit about what you actually do and what impact you think it'll have, the much easier it will be to create a section 1 with us that both you and the foundation agree accurately and realistically defines your work. This section essentially has 3 columns. The first one is to describe the core strategies and activities of your work. It's what you plan to do and implement with the funded dollars. The second column describes what you intend or hope to see happen because of the work you're doing. What specifically will change for whoever you're serving or working with because of your efforts? And then the last column, it's just a space to document information about what data or evidence you currently collect or you have available related to columns 1 and 2 that we could use to build your unique evaluation for the grant. This helps us know where to start, so when possible, we can build off of information and data you already have versus trying to add a whole new evaluation on top of your work. So again, the more accurate information you can give us about the actual information or data you collect in your application and your site visit, the easier and quicker this process will be. Once this section 1 is completed, your assigned program officer is going to fill in section 2 of the project framework, and we'll look at that next. This is section 2 of the project framework. In this section, your program officer is going to clarify on paper what they found most relevant in your work in terms of your alignment with the shared impact plan. In column 1, they're going to actually pull down information from that first section we looked at in the last slide on the core strategies and activities of your grant. Then in column 2 here, they're going to actually spell out where they see alignment with the shared impact plan from their perspective. And in column 3, they will identify the core changes you hope to see happen that they also feel like are important reasons for funding the grant. This work is to make the program officer's thinking visible to you, getting really clear about why they are advocating for this grant to be funded with respect to what the community has asked us to fund, and in real-world terms, what they would like to see you measure and report on for the year. Once a grant is awarded, this 4th column here for notes from the evaluation team becomes really important. After a grant is approved by the board, the program officer plans a call between the new grantee, the program officer, and an evaluation associate assigned to the grant. During this call, this framework is reviewed together, and in the spirit of partnership and collaboration, you will review and discuss what's already been completed in section 2 by the program officer. This is a chance for you to provide your opinion. Does the alignment resonate with you? Does what the program officer noted as a progress measure feel like the right measure to you, or do you have some other ideas? Together, we will collaborate to define and refine evaluation expectations for the grant. Your evaluation associate assigned to your grant will be on the call to document key takeaways in this 4th column so that everyone has a record of insights from the conversation and any decisions made about evaluation. From this call, the program officer typically hands off the project framework to the evaluation associate to finalize and operationalize the measures you and your program officer have agreed to. So this is section 3, which is the last and final section of your framework. It's completed sometimes as part of the initial call, but often it's more on a follow-up call or a few email exchanges with your evaluation associate assigned to the grant. This is between the evaluation associate and the grantee to clarify and document precisely what will be measured during the year and how the grantee will report on those measures. This section is intended to provide really clear detail for reporting, with the goal being the grantee can easily use Section 3 information to complete their written report and prepare for their learning call at the end of the grant year. So getting this section done early and done right can save you considerable time when completing reporting requirements at the end of the grant year. Columns 1 and 2 contain pull-down information from the last two slides that we looked at. It's what you and the PO have agreed on as important progress or impact measures for this year for the grant. The third column details how and when you will report on each measure. It could be in your written flux report or as part of your end-of-year learning call, depending on the type of data and the intention of the data you're collecting and reporting on. This fourth column specifies exactly where the measurement data will be coming from, and the last column clearly defines how you will operationalize or define success for the data you have. This part is very important, but probably easier to understand with an actual example, which is where we're headed next. Every grantee funded during a regular funding cycle is required to have a completed project framework, so sections 1, 2, and 3. So if you plan on working with Caring for Denver, being familiar with all these sections of the project framework and thinking about how you can provide the best and most accurate information possible in the framework is definitely a good investment of your time. Okay, on the next slides, we're going to actually look at an example together. Okay, so this is an example for an organization called Athletic Kids. And as you can see here, like we talked about, this is just an overview of the grant. So it lets you know who is involved, what their contact information is, that this is a $75,000 grant over 3 years, and what their anticipated reach is over those years. You can see a brief project description here, how Summer Sports League and Athletic Kids talks about the work that they're doing and why it's important. And then you'll see an objective for the grant agreement. So again, this is what is happening to whom or with or for whom in order to see what results related to substance misuse and mental health. So for this grant, provide mental health skills training and resources to youth and staff during Summer Sports League so we can increase awareness of symptoms and resources, reduce stigma, and improve youth resiliency. So you'll see this gray bar to the side. We didn't talk about this. This is just a place for program officers to start making that alignment between the description of the work, the objectives of the grant, and what we see in the shared impact plan. And in section 1 of the framework for this particular grant, you'll see in column 1, they actually have 2 main strategies for the work, and then they've spelled out underneath those what are kind of the core activities happening. So they are going to be doing youth mental health first aid training with all the adults, the coaches, the team volunteers. And then they're also going to be doing mental health skills training and practice during the season with the youth. In the second column, they've laid out for each one of these strategies what they hope will change or what they hope to see happen. So we can just look at the youth mental health first aid training. You'll see they have 3 things here that they'd like to see happen. Adults are able to recognize mental distress, they have the skills and resources necessary to address those concerns, and they feel equipped to talk with the youth and also confidently refer them to additional supports if needed. So it's pretty straightforward what they're trying to do with the training. Those are things that are easy for us to think about how we can measure them and how we could show results. In the third column, and we'll just stick with that example, they've listed 3 ways that they already have information that can help them better understand if the activities are being implemented and what they hope to see happen if those things are actually happening. So they're going to have completion certificates for the training, they already have a survey in place, and they already do staff check-ins and take monthly or weekly meeting notes for those staff check-ins. So that same process is repeated for the mental health skills training and practice during the season, but we'll just stick with that top example for now. And this is section 2 of the grants project framework. So remember, section 1 is just kind of the universe of information. We want to make sure we've gotten everything there. And then this is where the program officer starts to hone in on what's most important, seems most aligned with our shared impact plan. So in column 1, they've pulled down those core strategies and activities, the youth mental health first aid, and then the mental health skills training and practice during the season. And for each, they've connected it to a signal of progress that seems really important or a shared impact. So for youth mental health first aid, the adults increasing their skills or awareness for addressing mental health or substance misuse issues seems really important. And in the third column, the program officer has laid out a couple of different ways they are interested in seeing this progress on increasing skills or awareness. So they want to know, like adults, do they actually know the signs of mental health challenges? And do they have the information and confidence to refer youth to additional resources and supports? We've done that also for the mental health skills training and practice during the season, but again, we'll just stick with the top one. And then like we talked about, this fourth column, it's when we all get together on a call and we actually are able to talk about these things together. So there's a note here that just says, yes, the grantee felt like this is important to check in on. Staff have been routinely asking for this information, and they just want to make sure that what they're doing is a good way of meeting that need. I also want to point out we have some additional team meeting notes in terms of one of the measures for the youth on increasing resilience and ability to cope. We have a note here that just says they've drafted a new survey question, but they'd like some help making sure it's a good way to ask the question. So just a reminder, not everything has to be perfectly spelled out and clear. You can work with your evaluation associate or additional help that we can provide to make sure you can get things finalized. They feel good to you, they feel good to your program officer in terms of measuring your impact. And this slide shows an example from section 3 of this Grantees Project Framework. Typically, we bring several things down from section 2, but just for clarity and simplicity, I've brought down one example for us to talk through. So this, again, you can see from column 1, we've brought down the signal of progress or shared impact that we're focused on. That's increased skills or awareness for adults. We actually have 2 measures. That's in column 2. This is what the program officer and grantee agreed on. They're going to look at making sure adults know the signs of mental health challenges, and also that they feel confident and can refer youth when needed to additional resources. The third column tells us where this information is going to be reported. There are 2 places, either on your Flex report or your learning call. And the type of data that you're bringing down usually dictates which reporting format you'll use. So let's talk about the Flex report first. If you look at the 4th column, the tool or evidence, they actually have a training survey that they do after the mental health training has happened. And so they're going to use data from that because it's a number. It's pretty easy to put in the Flex report. It's quantitative data. But we also want to get really clear about how we're going to know that change has happened. That's in that last column. The denominator, that's really just who are the people, or what's the population that you're going to be looking at to see if there was change. So in this case, the denominator is the adults that complete the post-training survey. We want to know of those adults, how many met the criteria for success, and that's what our numerator is. So in this case, what the grantee has said is success is that the adult gets at least 80% of the knowledge questions correct on the survey, but they also want to know, did they respond yes to attending this training has increased my skills and awareness for addressing youth mental health needs. So they want to see that they've got the skills and awareness, that the information's there, but also that they're attributing it to this training that's happened. The second piece of this is for our adults able to refer youth when they need more resources. Because this is a pilot program and they're just not quite sure, they really want to draw on what they're hearing in terms of feedback, just actual conversations with adults. It makes that particular measure more of a learning call measure because it's qualitative data. They're going to actually use their check-in notes where they're taking notes each week on what they're seeing with the kids. Has anyone been referred out? What were the resources that were referred? And what was the feedback from the adult in terms of, did they feel like they were capable and did they feel confident doing this? So we've got that. We've also got some really clear check-in points here. So the program officer is specifically going to ask these things, and the expectation is the grantee is going to be able to answer them on that call. They're going to look across those check-in notes. They're going to bring some specific examples and some feedback from the adults on, is this really helping? Do they feel like they have the ability to refer and the confidence to refer? So we love to get creative with grantees. We really want this to be meaningful for you, so we really want to work with the data that you have and think about how we can draw from that information to really check in on, are things going well? Are you seeing the progress that you want to see? If not, that end of grant learning call is a great time to talk to your program officer about any adaptations that you're thinking about for the second year or the third year of the grant. So hopefully having just a review of an example has been helpful. And in the end, we hope the time we spend together on a framework document is beneficial beyond your grant. We hope it helps you clarify your work, not just for us, but for your organization and ways that support you in sustaining this work through having time to just focus on what matters most to you, creating space for reflection on information and data that's relevant to you, not just to the foundation, and hopefully helping build your resources for additional applications and grants from other funders as you narrate the story of your work. We know it takes some effort to do this, but we continue to hear from grantees it's worth it. In fact, we've had several grantees use the framework to build successful applications for additional grant funds, and those have been local, regional, and even national funders. And a couple have used the framework as a basis for an update to their actual evaluation approach within their own organizations. We love hearing stories like that. We hope there are more to come as we continue to implement this framework approach. We also hope this video has been a helpful introduction to the project framework, but if you have questions or need any additional information, please don't hesitate to reach out either to the evaluation team or to a program officer for help. We look forward to hopefully working with you on a project framework in the future, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you.